Have you ever heard of constructions so massive and elaborate that they seem to defy logic? Monuments built with unimaginable wealth that challenge the passage of time. Some of these structures have mysteriously crumbled, while others hide secrets that science still struggles to explain. The Bible speaks of some of the most remarkable buildings in history, and each one holds a hidden mystery, a lost message or a truth that few dare to investigate. In this video, you'll embark on a captivating journey through 5 of the most astonishing biblical constructions and the secrets they guard. But be prepared, the final one on the list might completely change the way you see history and could leave you speechless. Are you ready to uncover the mysteries that connect faith, history, and archaeology? Then brace yourself, because what follows might alter your perspective on both the past and the future. Let's begin. The greatest constructions of the Bible. Have you ever imagined building a massive ship without the help of modern technology? No cranes, no electric tools, just wood, rough hands, and unwavering faith. That's exactly what Noah did, and centuries later, his story continues to puzzle scientists, archaeologists, and those who believe in the extraordinary. According to the Bible, at a time when corruption and chaos ruled the earth, God chose one man for a mission that seemed impossible: to construct a colossal refuge to save his family and representatives of every animal species from a global flood. Now, picture the scene. Noah receives this divine command. He begins cutting wood, carving joints, and designing compartments. The work is exhausting, decades of construction under the scorching sun, enduring mockery and doubt, all while carrying the weight of preserving God's creation. But the ark was not just any boat. Its dimensions were immense, about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. To put that into perspective, it was nearly the size of a modern cargo ship. It was built entirely of gopher wood and sealed with pitch to withstand the floodwaters. Now, think about it. How did Noah accomplish this with no advanced tools? How did he manage to organize and care for all the animals inside? And most importantly, was there really a flood that could cover entire mountains? Science attempts to answer these questions. Geologists and historians have found evidence suggesting that a massive flood once occurred in the Mesopotamian region. Could this be proof of Noah's story, or is it just a myth? Studies indicate that thousands of years ago, a devastating event may have flooded vast regions, leading to the widespread tradition of a global flood. However, what captures the most attention are the alleged discoveries of Noah's Ark itself. In 1959, a Turkish pilot flying over Mount Ararat spotted a formation that looked remarkably like the hull of a ship. Since then, numerous expeditions have attempted to determine whether the remains of Noah's vessel truly lie in that location. Some missions have uncovered pieces of petrified wood and geological formations resembling those of a large ship. Yet the question persists, could this really be Noah's Ark? While scientists continue to debate, faith remains steadfast. Now picture a city surrounded by massive walls, so thick and towering that they seemed impossible to breach. A fortress designed to withstand any attack, shielding its people from outside threats. But imagine something even more astonishing. These walls did not fall to battering rams, explosives, or war machines. Instead, they collapsed because of something far more mysterious: the sound of trumpets and the power of faith. This is the story of Jericho, one of the oldest cities known to humanity and the site of one of the Bible's most astonishing and controversial events. A moment so extraordinary that it continues to baffle scientists and historians to this day. But did this really happen? And if so, what does science say about the dramatic fall of Jericho's walls? According to the Bible, Jericho was a heavily fortified city with walls so high and strong that an attack seemed virtually impossible. For the Israelites who had wandered the desert for 40 years, conquering it was an unimaginable challenge. But God had a different strategy, one that defied all known military tactics. The Israelite army was given an unusual command. For 6 days, they were to march around the city in complete silence. No weapons, no direct attack, just a silent procession, as if waiting for an unseen signal. Then, on the 7th day, the plan changed. They were to circle the city 7 times, blow their trumpets and shout in unison. And then, In an incredible and inexplicable event, the walls of Jericho crumbled, not from siege weapons, not from an earthquake, but purely from sound. Now, stop and think for a moment. Is that even possible? Could the sound of trumpets and human voices really bring down such an impenetrable structure? Throughout the 20th century, archaeologists have sought answers, and their findings have only deepened the mystery. In the 1950s, British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon led an extensive excavation in the area and made a shocking discovery. There were indeed ruins of a great wall, which appeared to have collapsed suddenly. But the most astonishing detail? The evidence suggested that the walls had fallen outward from within, something entirely unexpected and nearly unheard of. Usually, when a city is under attack, its walls are broken down from the outside by enemy forces. However, in the case of Jericho, the collapse seemed to have come from within. This unusual occurrence aligns with the biblical account, which states that the walls did not fall because of human intervention, but rather due to something far greater. But could there be a natural explanation for this event? Some researchers believe that an earthquake may have been the true cause of Jericho's downfall. After all, the city is situated along a geological fault line, and tremors are fairly common in the region. The earthquake theory might seem plausible, except for one critical detail. How could Joshua and the Israelites have predicted the exact moment an earthquake would strike? And even more astonishingly, how could it have happened precisely at the moment of their trumpet blasts and war cries? If an earthquake was responsible, then the level of timing required would be almost impossible. Could this be one of those instances where science and faith intersect? What if Jericho fell due to an event beyond human comprehension? One thing remains certain: the fall of Jericho is still one of the greatest mysteries in biblical archaeology. But brace yourself, because the next structure we're about to explore is even more astonishing and enigmatic. Imagine a building so magnificent that its walls gleamed with pure gold, reflecting sunlight with a heavenly radiance. A place so sacred that it was constructed to house the very presence of God. This was Solomon's Temple, a masterpiece of Israel's sacred architecture, a structure surrounded by mystery, reverence, and divine power. But how was such an extraordinary temple built? What does archaeology tell us about its existence? And more importantly, what is its deeper spiritual meaning? The story begins with King David, the great ruler of Israel. He deeply desired to build a temple for God, but this mission was not meant for him. It was destined for his son and successor Solomon, the wisest king in history. The chosen site for the temple was no ordinary location. It stood on Mount Moriah, a place of immense spiritual significance where centuries earlier Abraham had nearly sacrificed his son Isaac. This sacred ground had long been associated with divine encounters and supernatural events, but the construction of the temple was not just an impressive engineering achievement. It was a project where every single detail carried divine purpose. The massive stone blocks used to build the temple were not cut at the construction site. Instead, they were precisely shaped and prepared at a distant location, so that no sound of hammers or tools would be heard at the temple grounds, as commanded by God. This raises an intriguing question. How were such enormous stone blocks transported, perfectly fitted, and assembled into a monumental structure without the use of noisy tools at the site? The temple's grandeur extended beyond its stonework. The famous cedars of Lebanon, among the most valuable and durable woods of the time, were imported from faraway lands. Their fragrance filled the air not just as a mark of luxury, but as a symbol of divine royalty and spiritual connection. But the most breathtaking feature of all was the temple's interior. Every surface was covered in pure gold, making the entire space glow with an almost otherworldly brilliance. Intricate carvings of cherubim, palm trees, and flowers decorated every corner, creating a scene that seemed to transcend earthly existence. At the heart of the temple lay its holiest chamber, the Holy of Holies. This was the most sacred space of all, where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, representing the physical presence of God among his people. After 7 years of careful and devoted work, Solomon's temple was finally completed, standing as one of the most awe-inspiring and mysterious structures in human history. But what happened on the day of the temple's inauguration was beyond anyone's expectations. Solomon gathered all the people of Israel for a grand and unforgettable ceremony. Standing before the altar, he offered a heartfelt and powerful prayer, asking God to accept this temple as his dwelling place on earth. And then something extraordinary took place. Suddenly, a radiant cloud descended from above, filling the entire temple. It was a tangible, indescribable presence, something that could be seen and felt. But what happened next was even more astonishing. Fire fell from the sky and consumed the sacrifices laid on the altar, right before the eyes of the amazed Israelites. It was an undeniable sign that God had accepted the temple as his sacred sanctuary. Overcome with awe, the people fell to their knees, realizing they were witnessing the very presence of the living Creator. But the story of Solomon's temple does not end there. For centuries, this sacred place remained an enigma. Its secrets, its eventual destruction, and the mysteries surrounding it continue to echo through history. And now, prepare yourself, because the next structure we are about to explore is even more astounding and thought-provoking. Imagine a world where all of humanity speaks the same language. There are no barriers, no divisions, everyone is united, working together with a common goal. That goal? To build a tower so immense that it would reach the heavens. But instead of bringing humanity closer to God, their ambition provoked his response. And then, something unbelievable happened. Communication was shattered. The people could no longer understand one another, and the great tower was left unfinished, abandoned forever. But what exactly was the Tower of Babel? Did it truly exist? What does archaeology reveal about this story? And most importantly, what powerful lesson does this ancient construction still hold for us today? According to the Bible, after the Great Flood, the descendants of Noah began to spread across the earth, repopulating different regions. For a time they remained united, speaking a single language. This unity gave them incredible power, the ability to organize without limits, to advance without obstacles. At some point, these people chose to settle in the plains of Shinar, an area known today as ancient Mesopotamia. But they did not just want to build homes and live there. They wanted to leave a lasting mark. Using advanced technology for their time, fired bricks and bitumen as mortar, they set out to construct a monumental structure. Their goal was clear: to build a tower so high and so ambitious that it would stand as a symbol of human greatness and self-sufficiency. They proclaimed, "Let us make a name for ourselves so that we will not be scattered over the face of the earth." Genesis 11:4. Their desire was not just to reach the heavens, but to assert their independence from God. The construction advanced. The tower rose higher and higher. The power of humanity seemed limitless. But then God intervened. He observed their work and made a profound decision. He would confuse their language so they could no longer understand one another. Now, try to picture the scene. A mason reaches for a brick, but his co-worker thinks he asks for water. The foreman attempts to give instructions, but no one understands him. What was once a well-organized project suddenly descends into total confusion. In mere moments, the construction site becomes pure chaos. Workers, once perfectly coordinated, now struggle to communicate. What had been an empire of unity and efficiency crumbles into disorder. Unable to understand each other, the builders abandon their work. They scatter in all directions, forming new groups and settling in different lands. Over time, these groups develop into the various nations and cultures we know today. But the biggest question remains: did this event truly happen? Many historians and researchers believe that the story of the Tower of Babel might have been inspired by a ziggurat, a type of stepped temple structure commonly built in ancient Mesopotamia. Among these, the most famous was the Etemenanki, a massive temple in the city of Babylon dedicated to the god Marduk. Historical records describe the Etemenanki as the house that unites heaven and earth. This name bears a striking resemblance to the purpose of the Tower of Babel as described in the Bible. Over the centuries, the temple was built, destroyed, and rebuilt multiple times before finally being abandoned. Could this be the actual tower mentioned in the biblical story? There is no definitive answer, but the similarities between the descriptions are remarkable. More than just a story about the origin of different languages, the tale of the Tower of Babel can also be seen as a timeless warning. How far can human ambition go? Could the relentless pursuit of power and greatness lead us into situations beyond our understanding? And now, get ready, because the next structure we are about to explore holds even more astonishing secrets. The Second Temple, a symbol of survival. Imagine living in a time of great suffering and exile. Your people have been forcibly taken from their homeland, held captive in a foreign nation. You have watched as your sacred temple, the very heart of your faith, was reduced to rubble. For many, this would have meant the end of their connection with God, but not for the Jewish people. When they finally returned from Babylonian captivity, they carried with them a powerful dream to rebuild their temple and restore their faith. The Second Temple of Jerusalem was not just another building. It became a symbol of rebirth, hope, and national identity. But how was this great temple constructed? What made it so significant? And, most importantly, why was it ultimately destroyed in such a tragic way? After 70 years of exile in Babylon, the Jewish people were granted permission to return home. This was made possible by Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who not only allowed their return but also ordered and funded the rebuilding of the temple. However, as soon as construction began, the people faced a harsh reality. This new temple would not be like Solomon's temple. It was smaller, less luxurious, and lacked the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred artifact of their faith. The gleaming gold that once covered the walls of the first temple was gone. For the older generation who still remembered the grandeur of Solomon's temple, this was heartbreaking. As they watched the new temple take shape, their eyes filled with tears, mourning the splendor that had been lost. The new temple seemed unimpressive compared to the magnificence of Solomon's original structure. It lacked the grandeur, the gold, and the sacred Ark of the Covenant. But then something unexpected happened. The prophet Haggai delivered a surprising message. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former. Haggai 2:9. But how could that be? How could a temple that appeared less impressive surpass the splendor of Solomon's? Centuries later, an ambitious and power-hungry king, Herod the Great, decided to change everything. Determined to leave his mark on history, he set out to expand and enhance the Second Temple, transforming it into one of the great wonders of the ancient world. What was once a modest structure became a breathtaking masterpiece. The temple courtyard was doubled in size, turning it into an enormous religious complex. Monumental columns, grand walkways, and massive gates were built, stunning anyone who visited. Parts of the temple were coated in pure gold and white marble, making the structure gleam under the Jerusalem sun. The result? A temple so magnificent that it left pilgrims in awe. The temple became the spiritual and cultural heart of Judaism, a place where crowds gathered to pray, offer sacrifices, and seek God's presence. It was within these sacred walls that Jesus taught, drove out the merchants, and made a shocking prophecy. Not one stone here will be left on another, every one will be thrown down. Matthew 24:2, a prophecy that tragically would come true. In 70 AD, the Roman Empire launched a brutal siege against Jerusalem in response to the first Jewish revolt. After months of relentless battle, the Romans breached the city walls and set fire to the temple. Historical records describe how the gold from the temple melted in the flames, seeping into the cracks between the massive stones. In their greed, the Roman soldiers dismantled the temple piece by piece, prying apart every stone to retrieve the precious metal. By the time the destruction was complete, nothing remained but ruins. The only surviving fragment was a portion of the outer wall, the western wall, one of the last visible remnants of the temple's former glory. Yet, even as a ruin, it became a sacred place, a powerful symbol of both devotion and loss. But the story of the temple does not end there. For centuries, the temple was the dwelling place of God's presence, the place where sacrifices were made and people sought forgiveness and guidance. But then something changed. Jesus brought a radical new message. He declared, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." John 2:19. But he wasn't talking about stone walls or golden altars. He was speaking of himself. The true temple would no longer be a building made by human hands. Instead, God would dwell within the hearts of people. Now, take a moment to reflect. If God desires to dwell in you, Is your life ready to receive him? Let this thought stay with you. Thank you for watching. May God bless you, and we'll see you soon.